Welcome to All Four Downs. If you take a deep whiff, you'll smell leather in the air. It is football season, and welcome to All Four Downs. And make sure you follow us on Facebook and on YouTube. We're just 16 days away. There is a lot to break down. Ovi Muniz and I will be breaking down the coaches. We'll be talking about Ovi's top 25, which I'll be honest, Ovi, it's not that far off than some of the garbage I've seen. And that's, I think, what allowed you to put Georgia up there so high.
Oh, here we go. We'll
Yeah.
definitely take them. Remember, my picks, my rankings came out 2 weeks ago, and you can and it's proof on hhwshow.com. So before all that, I've been studying all the newcomers, different coaches, players that return back, especially they got that extended option for their 5th year, because of the pandemic. So all that comes into play, but we're definitely going to talk about that later.
We are a little over 2 weeks away from the first game of the season, Illinois and Nebraska. How exciting is it, just the idea that football is back? You're a Red Sox fan, so baseball season's coming to a quick end for you. This is great. This is just what you need.
Oh, man. Listen. We're not out yet. And for those of y'all that he's talking about the next podcast, which is Ovi's Backstop podcast. But yeah, it's a lot of frustration that end. But you know what? You're right. It gets easier because in a couple of weeks, football's back. I got my right streaming apps ready to go because if I'm not watching SEC, I'm watching the Big Ten, the Pac-12. I don't know about the Big 12, but then again, they don't have 12 teams anyway, and they're going to lose out in 2 more pretty soon. But other than that, it's just the game, Joe. A lot of action and everything else. You want to sit back, chill out, get your little drink on, and just celebrate.
There's nothing more pure, I think, than college football. It's the highest level of football before you're getting paid to do it. Although maybe not for long. But this is it. This is where, your last remnants of guys that are there because they love playing football. This is it. And there's a lot of guys all across the country that in just a couple of weeks will be doing just that. Very exciting season. And there's there's no sure bets right now in college football. And I think it's easy to look at Alabama and assume we tried that with LSU last year. That blew up in our faces. So,
yeah, well, most of their players, 14 starters, ended up going to the NFL draft after that season. So I knew LSU wasn't going around. And the fact that they were dealing with a lot of legal issues, that was a distraction. And your favorite quarterback got injured. So, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
Brennan didn't show up for you.
Oh, boy, man. Lower body injuries just did him in last year, whatever exactly that means. But, yeah, rough season. And so, again, I mean, I think it's easy to assume that Alabama's going to be the powerhouse that they are. But, another undefeated season, I'm not buying it.
No, I'm not buying it either. And a lot of people are not buying it. But they do have the talent. So you can't dismiss that. But I'm still looking for that next Mac Jones, and I'm not looking at the SEC for that. I'm looking at another conference, and I'm talking about Desmond Ridder, who has been phenomenal for his time in Cincinnati, and he's going out his senior year, and I think he's going to have a breakout year, but he is not alone because Oklahoma has Spencer also, and he's looking. I mean, look, they played very well against Georgia, even though they came out with a loss last year in the bowl game. But I think Cincinnati and Oklahoma are going to be a major factor into the college playoffs.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think going forward, just what the power dynamic looks like.
Look, the only thing that could ruin the game is the pandemic. Today, there was announced already that the Pac-12 will forfeit their games should they be unable to play their game. And now this was an issue last year, which they were pretty much delayed, right? They're more of a reaction conference than a proactive conference. And they announced it today that should COVID be interfering with the players, definitely that they're not going to play the game and automatically get a loss. On the other hand, Ole Miss announced that they are 100% vaccinated for COVID-19. How you feel about that?
Listen, this is one of those things where if you want to play football, the best, smartest, and safest thing to do is just to be vaccinated so that I mean, you look all around. I mean, the Yankees have been decimated recently with COVID. And when it hits, it tends to spread, and quarterbacks all are in the same room together, and running backs and receivers, and so it's not just a guy here and a guy there. You may end up all your quarterbacks have to sit for a couple weeks. That would be devastating to any team in college football.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's a real thing, and good for the Pac-12 to
I,
say, you know what, we're if we can't do it, if we get hit with, we're just going to forfeit games. It doesn't do anything for their relevancy, and it certainly doesn't help with the way the conferences are shifting and the power is obviously all moving to the SEC. So, I said all last year, Obi, I thought that they were being treated like the redheaded stepchild of the Power Five conference. It was like, if you guys don't, we don't really need you. We don't care. And
absolutely.
I think this is just another step towards nobody cares what the Pac-12 is doing. And that's unfortunate because I think of all the conferences, the one that's most got the kids in mind is the Pac-12.
And they got a new commissioner this year who is stepping up, and he's trying to make these changes to make that Pac-12 relevant. But it's hard to be competitive when you do have like schools like Texas and Oklahoma that want to leave the Big 12, move over to the SEC, and make it a super conference. So that's going to be talked about all season long. And I'm just curious of what's going to happen in the offseason. Would other colleges come together and create an addition super conference? So, and I do foresee the Pac-12 being a major factor in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, something's got to give here, and as many teams as are in the SEC, I mean, even within that, it's just a handful of teams that have all the power, and they're the ones that matter, and everybody else is just sort of there picking up the scraps.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
there's enough really good college football programs out there where I think they can build out their own mega conference and outdo the SEC and might maybe become something a little more desirable when it comes to recruiting. So,
yeah.
the
Maybe so.
SEC is forcing everybody's hand. This does have the potential, I think, long term to also blow up in their face a little bit.
Look, I've been saying it. I followed college football when I lived down south. People kept telling me SEC is the best conference, and they keep proving to me that they are. And I know everything kind of like went really in their favor once this college football committee started happening, because you didn't see this much in the BCS. But look, we don't even hear Texas anymore. We don't hear USC anymore. Back then when the AP poll were in effect, and they were the ones that were guided, hey, this is going to be the number one team. But they made it better. It's just they got to tune it out a little bit, right? And when they were discussing about expanded playoffs, it was a great idea at the time. Then all of a sudden things started like crumbling, like, whoa, super conference, this, and that. And I told you last week that there is no need for expanded playoffs if this is the direction that they're going. My other thought was, and I'm glad you brought this up, is that if they were to make a super conference, could they add one more additional game instead of a 12 games season, a 13 game season? Because of the fact that you already have a stacked conference, right? 14 teams, right? So you're going to have to automatically have 7 teams that you got to play against within your conference, which is a small window of an opportunity to play against another conference that's a compatible or a better team, such as if they add one more, let me see, let's say Alabama, right? Could we squeeze in them against Ohio State or Michigan, or go against Cincinnati from the AAC? You know what I mean? Like, do they have it, or would it be so much that they're just going to concentrate on one conference and that's all?
Again, I mean, When what I saw from the Power Five when they basically seized control of college football was, it was the Big Five and then everybody else, and I thought it seemingly became kind of the Big Three, the other two, and then everybody else. And now it's just the SEC, and the hell with everybody else is what I feel like the philosophy is. I said last year I really thought the other conferences should have been like, nah, I don't like the way this is going. I'm not surprised that the SEC was working behind everybody's back to completely destroy college football as we know it, because again, the NCAA basically gave them carte blanche to do whatever they wanted to, and
Oh, and that's
they
another
they
thing.
did it.
Now they're trying to react to things like, oh damn, we don't have control. Hey, let's have a meeting in October. Come on, we got to get together.
When people talk about government involvement in business, and it's like, just let businesses pay with you can't.
Hmm.
You can't assume everybody's looking out for everybody else. If that happened, and it doesn't. It just doesn't happen. And so, of course, the powers that be in the SEC are trying to seize all the power for themselves. And they've got themselves a really good conference, and it's pretty deep already. You put a couple more big powerhouse names in there, you really don't need everybody else.
Absolutely. But I do like want to at least recognize those colleges like Coastal Carolina, like Appalachian State, because they had a one hell of a season last year, and they're gonna do something this year as well.
I'll tell you something. I think if you look at NCAA basketball, I think that was the fear that the Power Five had, and especially within the SEC, that idea that the mid majors now in college basketball, like Wichita State and Gonzaga's a national powerhouse now.
Hmm.
Alabama and the teams in the SEC do not want to see a Coastal Carolina become a national powerhouse, or a BYU or a Cincy. They don't want that. It's great for college football, but they don't care about college football. They care about themselves. And it's become quite evident. And I think I think the talks that began a year and a half ago behind everybody's back, I think
Yes.
it only got expedited last year when you had legit three teams from outside the Power Five that were like, we should be in the playoffs.
Yes.
And this is a play now to make sure that not only doesn't happen, but that they won't ever have to entertain the notion again. That's wrong.
It is. And it's definitely wrong. And it definitely ruins the sport because we look, I don't know about you, but yeah, in baseball, I don't want to see the same teams going to the playoffs or even in football, any sport. I like to see new teams step up and see what their value is, right? And in college football, you mean to tell me I'm going to have to see Alabama and Clemson every single year? I mean, we're going, I think, 6 seasons now with the college football, and those same two schools has been in it. And if Alabama's outside, Saban's going to, play politics to get themselves in there. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, people do recognize where the money is at, and everyone wants to be competitive. And I got a feeling that there are changes will happen, and it's just not just the SEC. I think college football overall, it's going to change. And if no one's been paying attention, look at these coaches from those small schools. Once they're successful, they don't stick around. They move up to the big leagues, to like the SEC or the Big Ten. And quite frankly, let me introduce you to a few of them here as we get set and recognize some of these brand new coaches. And we can start here with Brett Bielema. Okay, even though look, he started with Iowa, right, as assistant coaches and stuff like that. And look, he did well with Wisconsin, but when he went over to the SEC, things didn't look pretty for him as he was overall 29 wins and 34 losses. Um, He's leaving the New York Giants organization to become the head coach of Illinois. I think that will be a blessing for him. Dude, he's been in that Big Ten before, so he's going to do wonders for Illinois. And the program's not going to change this season. But the old head coach Smith, I mean, he kind of ruined the whole culture there. But that's that guy. Pretty soon, you're going to see Illinois in 3 years making a lot of noise there. The
Well,
other one,
you gotta like the pedigree on BLM. I think anytime you're around organizations like the Giants and the Patriots,
mhm.
you're gonna learn a lot from some really great people, and you're gonna learn how to do things the right way. So yeah, that's definitely a step in the right direction.
We got Lance Lippold from Buffalo. As I remember, he had running back Patterson, who set the record for the most yardage in one game. But he was successful, 37 and 33 with Buffalo. He now takes over Kansas because of Les Miles' legal issues that he had in LSU. He got dismissed. So that program, as a matter of fact, the last 2 years they've been in the basement. So they definitely need another head coach to take over. We
Well,
all know
and don't forget they lost last year to Coastal Carolina, and they are playing them on September 10th,
Mm-hmm.
and that might be the toughest game on Coastal Carolina's schedule. I mean, 12-0 looks certainly achievable for them. And Kansas might be the best matchup that they're going to have, and the best challenge to stopping an undefeated season. I
Right.
would like to, I mean, no, Lance Leopold did a really good job. I mean, certainly those running backs made him look pretty smart. They had an outstanding year last year, 37 and 33. When you think about the year they had last year, he had a losing record before last season.
Right.
So
But I mean,
not to say he's not a good coach. I don't mean to suggest that. I'm just
no,
saying,
no. Trust me, I definitely know what you're talking about there.
yeah,
But they needed another coach. I think Les
yes.
Miles being there, let's say nothing happened, Les Miles being there will only make matters worse. So they definitely needed a coaching change. Speaking about the change, Steve Sarkisian is trying to head back to the SEC with Texas. So I love this drama, by the way, because not only that he gets to return to SEC in a couple of years, but then Texas also faces Texas A&M, which brings back that rivalry. The Aggies been dodging the Longhorns, and they want to be the only state to represent the SEC in Texas. And it's not going to happen any longer. But Sarkisian, he is no stranger as being a head coach. He had his fallout with USC with some drinking issues and stuff like that. I call it substance abuse, but I think he had found himself in the right way, and being with Nick Saban, I think that was the best medicine for him. And I have a good feeling he's going to do very well with Texas, but it's not going to be this year. A lot of people are hyping the Texas Longhorns, but the worst thing about Texas is that they don't have any defense. They've always had an offense, but defense is one that spoils the game for them. So what can he do in the defensive side of the house to make Texas improve and be competitive against Oklahoma?
Well, again, I would say you got a guy with good pedigree who's coming in there who knows how to whip a franchise into shape. You're coming from Alabama. You've already got the model. You just need to implement it in Texas. How hard can that be? I mean, listen, it is what it is. The defenses are never going to be any good, and you need a good offense. And he's definitely an offensive mastermind. I think I think that's gonna go well for Texas. I really do. And again, I'm not surprised by the way all this shook out in the long run. I thought it was weird that Bama let Sarkisian leave in the first place, and now we know
Look,
why.
Sarkisian, not only did he leave Alabama, but he took half of that coaching staff with him.
Yeah.
All right. So it's gonna be interesting. And then you mentioned at the beginning and last week, Alabama undefeated again this year. It's just I just don't feel that's gonna happen. Uh, However, 80% chance they'll one loss. I think it's percentage less than that if they get two losses. But
By the way, I wanted to mention something
mhm.
on our last point when you mentioned Les Miles. I feel like Les Miles and Gary Barnett should never be allowed to coach any sort of college or high school. Like they should be banned from that. Like those two guys don't go. You're fine. Go coach in the pros.
Mm-hmm.
Those two guys, everywhere they go, leave programs in disarray because they don't follow the rules and they don't know how to behave like human beings. I
Okay,
just wanted to get that out
can we
there.
say the same thing with LSU head coach right now, Ed Orgeron? Orgeron, that's how you say his name, Coach Ed.
uh,
Like
yeah,
look, they're dealing with these issues now with the players there. You know, like all these sexual harassment cases and stuff like that, sexual assault. What is that? That's his responsibility to build that culture to a positivity. You know, but yet no
yeah,
one's saying that he's at fault. And I'm just like, yo, he is the head coach. You in charge. Every other head coaches that have been in this situation either gotten fined or got fired, right? And he's the only one that's like, hey man, I didn't know. I didn't know what's going on. Really?
yeah. I mean, what a bunch of nonsense, and not for nothing, but every guy who didn't know anything, from Joe Paterno to oh god, who's the little scrawny the Italian kid from Louisville, the coach. Oh my god.
Yeah, he's back. What? Yeah, no, no,
What a
I'm talking about
what a
Rutgers here, but
what a
I know what you're talking
disaster.
about.
Yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah,
what you're talking
yeah.
about. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you, you're gonna just go corrupt what, a smaller like a smaller program now? Just stop it.
No,
Just stop.
no. But
Rick Pitino is the name I was trying to
oh,
think
Rick
of.
Pitino, absolutely, yeah.
Dude, I mean,
That guy
right?
did it
Like
all by
that guy.
himself, though.
Yeah. Oh, I
No,
didn't know. I didn't know what was going on.
no.
Joe Paterno at Penn State. I didn't know what was happening in the showers. Come on, dude. Give me a break. It's your program. Jimmy Boeheim, too. I'm a big Syracuse fan, but man, they had some stuff going on at Syracuse for a while on Jimmy Boeheim's watch.
Mm.
Disgraceful.
They try
Absolutely
to keep it a
disgraceful.
hush hush so they won't grab that
Yeah.
attention.
Listen, look, you're big man on campus, but don't forget that campus is more important than you are.
If you
And you
handle your
gotta
business right, people will respect you and want to be in your
absolutely,
program.
absolutely. That's how this all works.
Arizona has a head coach here, Jeff Fish. He takes over. He is a former New England Patriots quarterback coach. So he takes. It's gonna be interesting, man, because the Arizona has always been one of those elite football programs that kind of like disappeared. And I got a feeling that Jeff Fish will bring that team back and represent the Pac-12 in the near future. Also, Brian Harson. This is the second time he takes over the organization behind Gus Malzahn. All right, he ended up going to UCF, but this program, it's a winning program anyway. It's not like Auburn was in last place or nothing like that. There's always been issues with Coach Gus of remaining as a head coach because the only thing that Auburn could think of is how do you beat Alabama? That's it. It doesn't matter about the other games. And Auburn has been very, very lucky. All right. If you watch last season, 3 games in which the Auburn Tigers should have had 3 losses. And for some odd reason, the referee spin it off to be able to give Auburn a chance to win the game. And that is so crazy right now.
Mm.
But I know Jace will beg to differ on that. You know, a win's a win. But it's like, nah, there's this yellow flag that needs to be thrown out there that Auburn was suspect last year. But Bryant is set for success, but he is not set up right now to handle a team like Alabama.
No, he's definitely not. The talent gap is too wide right now, but I do think he's the right guy. I think the success at Boise State is going to have a long-term effect on Auburn going forward here, and it's certainly going to help with recruiting. And I think they'll, again, I think when you're looking at the even the transfer portal and stuff, I mean, there's going to be so many more opportunities to get high quality players who, maybe go to an Alabama and underperform and aren't starters and might want to go to Auburn and become a starter tomorrow.
Mm.
So there'll be opportunities there, and then I think that Hartson certainly has the reputation to take a job like Auburn. So I see this program turning around.
It's the new era of college football now with all the transfers. Hey, you don't start me this year, I'm leaving next year.
Yeah.
So Shane Beamer takes over as South Carolina head coach. Um, he's coming from the tight end coach and an assistant at Oklahoma. He has a good way of handling that offense, but it's more of that motivation for South Carolina than because they do have competitive players in that team, and they just didn't have the right leadership to get them there, And yeah, I mean they had the within I don't know they were able to beat Georgia on one time, but they're better than what they are. They got the players, and hopefully Shane Beamer's the man. But as of right now, he's gonna have to take a seat back because that team's not ready for Florida nor Georgia this year.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I feel like this is a dead end job for Beamer. I think this is one of those where, because of who his dad is, he's getting an opportunity, and he's had a tremendous amount of opportunities. He's already been at South Carolina before. He's been pretty much all across the conference, if you want to be technical about it. This will be good for him. It's some experience as the head coach, but as far as what it's going to do for the Gamecocks, I'd say it's nothing. He's going to go, 14-44 before he ends up taking the offensive coordinator job at Alabama, and then
Oh, there you go.
will
That's what
eventually a year
happens.
later become. Yeah, that's all you got to do.
I mean, that's the only resume you have for Alabama. Wrong. Once you get fired as a head coach, just come be an offensive coordinator for Nick
Yes.
Saban.
All I
Yeah.
can do, right?
Yeah.
Run an offense, win a national title, and then I can go be the head coach of Oklahoma
Uh,
or
t-
somewhere. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Two
all
more
good.
coaches in there. Tennessee, which is looking for a culture direction there. Um, yeah, I even left out his name, huh? But that's all
It's
right
funny.
though.
I mean, you look at some of these teams. A team like Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee was great all through the
Hmm.
'80s and '90s, and it's been a long time now for them, and so you is a coach going to make the difference? Not necessarily, but you got to get back into that mindset. You're obviously in a really tough conference, and you know it's
Yeah.
step in the right direction.
So Josh Hopel on the left UCF to become the head coach of Tennessee, right? And you look at the right, and that's the new head coach. Um, and I tell you what, I think both these schools are going to be a lot better this year. I'm talking about this year. They're going to be a lot better. They're going to represent, but they're going to come out short on winning because you have Georgia and Alabama that are going to be favorites in Cincinnati in SEC, and then in the AAC you have Cincinnati and Tulsa is getting better as well. But knowing that what you have there, I think UCF is going to make a lot of noise. And there was always known for offense, but he has a defensive mindset right there that it's going to make that school better.
Yeah, funny too. I'm looking at the new head coach's resume, and there's a lot of high school on there. I don't
Yeah,
really see that all that often. That's great. This guy was a powerhouse high school football coach. Moving on up, I like that.
at Coach Maz, man, he's done it all, man. I mean, hey, that's how you relate to the kids.
But again, dude,
Bottom
but
line.
that's a guy who doesn't know anybody. He's just a high school football coach in the middle of nowhere down south, and he's busting his butt and he's getting wins. And he gets noticed, and he gets recruited to the big boy league, just like one of his kids would. That's to me, that's more impressive than Scott Beamer, Shane Beamer, rather. You know what I mean? It really is. I mean,
Right.
Shane Beamer was basically handed like, "Hey, bud, here's some opportunities because of your dad," and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I like a guy that kind of earned it and has obviously put the time in, and we'll see what that means for UCF.
Other coaches that are first timers. The three that I highlight was Vanderbilt, Boise State, and Utah State because Boise State's a great program. Let's see if Andy will be able to continue the success that Boise State has had. Vanderbilt has always been rock bottom. They're winless. Can they win this year? Will they still have their female kicker? I know she made history last year, kicking a field goal. Arkansas State, Butch Jones left Alabama to head coach. This is like his last shot, really,
Yeah.
to redeem himself. And then, of course, in Utah, Blake Anderson, who left Arkansas State to take the job. Uh, to him, I think he feels like that is a promotion, and I think they'll do a good job, man. I really do. And the other schools, well, they've been vacant because those coaches moved up to do bigger and better things. So it's going to be interesting to see. Definitely going to follow them through all the way, and definitely they're going to be noticed here in all four downs. But to be noticed here is the top 25. Yesterday, the coaches poll came out. However, my polls, my rankings came out a couple of weeks prior, right? And I'm not sugarcoating nothing. This is something that, again, I was looking through the recruits, and some of those recruits are not going to be playing, of course, but I'm looking at guys that just came back to play another year. You know, I'm looking at Heisman hopefuls and everything else. And I'm going to start from the very top right here. This is my top six, right? Just like the college football playoff, that type of deal. Now, are these six colleges are going to be there by the end of the season? Absolutely not. I'm telling you that right now. All right. But Alabama, Ohio State, and I look at the head coach of Ohio State, Coach Day. This guy, he only got 2 losses, man. 2 losses.
Yeah, well, I think that speaks a lot of the conference, I'll tell you. I mean, I think you look at the disappointing seasons that Minnesota and Penn State had last year. I just think that that whole conference on a whole has been really disappointing the last couple of years. And Ohio State's Ohio State. And as long as those top 4-5 teams on this list, and that's who I'm really talking about. A&M is cute that they get to always be on this list, no matter how many losses they have.
Well, they only had 2 losses last year, but when they were actually being thinking about
they
going to
always
the
have
con,
2
but
losses.
they
They should
only
start the year
lost.
with 2 losses.
They
That's what
lost to
should happen.
Alabama. Actually, no, last year they only lost 1, but just never got into the college football playoffs because they got destroyed by Alabama. So they didn't make no sense being up there.
So
But
teams 1 through 5, by the way, represent 60% of all of the 5-star recruits that come to college football. 60% of those guys are on those 5 teams.
and
That's why will those teams be there at the top? Maybe they'll be near it because of that, because the talent gap is so wide. I mean, listen, obviously these teams have to go out there and win football games, but they're all certainly primed to win a lot of games.
Look, I tell you this, Oklahoma, I know everyone speaks highly about Iowa State in that conference, right? And Oklahoma did lose to them last year during the regular season. On the Big 12 conference game, Oklahoma they got paybacks. They won, right? But I'm just curious. A lot of people are thinking that Iowa State is going to win that conference this year. And you talking about Oklahoma that has won 6 straight conferences, okay? 6 straight conference championships. It's going to be hard to go against Oklahoma. But let's just say there. And Oklahoma always finds a way to step on themselves to get that loss. Then you got Georgia and Clemson in week 1. And I'm telling you, that the winner of that game in week 1 should deserve to be in number 1 ranking, honestly. But even though I got them 4 and 5 right there, but whoever loses that is going to be hard to get back in the top 4.
Yeah, but you know what? It's an early season loss. You could reel off 7 or 8 in a row and earn your way back in.
But
so
if it's Clemson, it's easier for them because they're in the ACC.
Absolutely.
And then the only competition they have in that conference running in their schedule is North Carolina. You know what I mean? But in Georgia, it's very hard. And people are saying it's easy. Oh, well, Georgia's going to be, and they're going to go to the SEC championship. Not really. They lost to Florida. They lost to Alabama during the regular season. You know what I mean? It's not as easy as you think. And I already told you last week, something about that offense that you can't just rely on just Hail Mary throws all the time. you gotta have a balanced offense, something that Georgia doesn't have. They had a running game, but once that running game is stopped, it's like, where is your target, JT Daniels? And I know, Jace, you might be hearing me be like, oh, JT Daniels, he's gonna be a Heisman winner. Not so much. And I'm a Georgia fan, not so much. But that's what worries me. And I'm glad that Georgia and Clemson are going to go and play in week one. But I'm telling you, the loser of that game is going to be hard to get back there because of the strength of schedule.
Yeah, I agree with that somewhat. I think for all of these teams, as long as you don't lose 2 games, you'll be in the top 10 when the season's over. That's basically the trick you're trying to pull. Whether
Well,
Georgia can avoid a third loss this year
unless you
is
got some
anyone's
money in
guess.
SEC, then you might.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, moving on from 7 to 10, I have Notre Dame, Iowa State, Oregon, and Florida. Yes, I have Notre Dame at 7, but keep in mind they did lose half their roster to either they graduated or they went to the NFL. Uh, but there's a lot of new guys. I'm not dismissing them, but I got a gut feeling that they will not be in the top 10 towards the end of the season. Iowa State, everyone's jumping on them. I'm giving them credit for because that game with Oklahoma both times were very close down to the wire to the end of the game. I'll give them that. But I just don't trust the Big 12. I really don't. Oregon, they're back. As long as they're COVID free, they're good. But once they start missing out, then I just gonna lose all my respect to the Pac-12, right?
Yeah.
Florida, they're I got them at 10. They're questionable right now, but
Lost
I
a
can see them.
lot of talent left
Mhm.
Florida.
Then also Cincinnati at number 11. I do see them making it to a competitive top 5. LSU, North Carolina, Miami, and Texas are there. Um, Again, Texas being 15, I believe they're too high. But with that new coaching staff and everything, maybe they could change that culture right away and be a winning team. But I just don't think they have enough to beat Oklahoma yet. Going on to 16 to 20, USC, Penn State, Louisiana, Wisconsin, Liberty. Yeah, I got Liberty.
All
I
right. All
like
right.
Liberty. Oh, yes, indeed. Definitely Louisiana, one of my favorite schools that I wish they could do more, right? Penn State, look, cancel out last year. That is not the team that I know about Penn State. The Nittany Lions will represent this year. They have a full training camp. They're going to be rock steady, roll ready for week one. I'm telling you that right now. And then as far as the bottom last 5, Indiana, Auburn, Iowa, BYU, and lastly, sure is Washington Huskies, right? Indiana, look, I know they were ranked pretty high last year, right? But I think there was more of trying to benefit Ohio State. I'm telling you, playing 6 games, I don't feel like that was good enough to see an actual team. Now we got a full season. What could Indiana do? And then Auburn with a new head coach. Can they represent and be competitive against Alabama and Texas A&M? Those are the 2 solid colleges in that division and SEC that Auburn has to worry about. And then in comparison, look, I think I hit money in the top. What is it? 5 out of the top 8 teams right there that are seated properly. But I'm just concerned why they didn't include Liberty, Auburn, and BYU in the rankings because they definitely deserve to be there. Um,
Well, I must say there's one quite notable exception on your list. I see they're 24th on the coaches poll, and that is Coastal Carolina, who I believe is returning one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Grayson McCall. If you go back to the 2019 season, Coastal Carolina has won 12 consecutive regular season games, which is tied for Alabama for the longest winning streak in all of FBS. Coastal Carolina is 2-3 all time versus FBS top 25 teams. So I don't know. I don't know why they're completely being overlooked again. I don't like it.
Coastal Carolina, I got them ranked at 26. Yeah, I know I have my
26. I love it.
I do,
Yeah,
but you know
again,
what though?
you had to put Iowa on. I
Mm,
understand. Iowa
no,
needs
but
to be on the list.
the thing is,
You need to
it's
get all
very
the big
hard
you need to get all the big programs.
in my position. It's very hard when you start trying to do your research, and you got those schools that they don't even talk about. So when you go and you look at you know, the 5 stars, 4 star, 3 star players and stuff like that, you got colleges like Coastal Carolina that people don't really talk about. So I'm all in for Coastal Carolina. They might make it in there after week 1. We'll see about it. But for now, I mean, look.
You hold on. You've got Washington ranked 25th, which by my estimates is the 4th best team in the Pac-12.
No, I don't think they're the fourth
Over
best team.
Oh well, you've got
I'm not
Oregon and you've
counting.
got USC, so you've already got teams
I
ahead
don't.
of them. And I'm saying
USC is to
I don't
me.
even know if Washington is the 4th best team. You're gonna put them over the best team in the Sun Belt, a team that's tied for the longest winning streak in all of college football, and a guy who's I think returning one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. Don't be surprised if Grayson McCall, by the way, his name is in the Heisman race from start to finish. As I said earlier, they've got an undefeated season lined up again. They just have to beat Liberty, who they're 7-7 against all time, and they got the big game against Kansas. Other than that, they're in great shape. I'm stunned that you
They
don't have them on
could.
the list,
They could be in great shape. And like I said, this is just preseason
especially because
ranking.
they also beat that 24th ranked team, BYU, who doesn't have Zach Wilson anymore.
You're right.
You want to
Absolutely
change
right.
it?
I will not change it right now.
Yeah.
Look, and
Oh, this is
again,
fun.
listen, I that's why I like about college football, because this is something that we can always talk about, right? Comparison. Oh, you got him ranked, you got that ranked. And guess what? Like we always do every year, right? Every season, we're all gonna have our top 25, and then we'll consolidate and we'll come out every week with the all 4 downs top 25 rankings and compare to each other. So, we still got R&J podcast that's out there. Uh, we still have who else you got out there? Besides Hector, myself, Jace, and Sean. Or Jason, Sean, they should be here.
You've got 7 SEC teams in this top 25, and and still 7 deep in the SEC. You couldn't find a spot for Coastal Carolina.
SEC is the best football and
like a
is
knife
the
in the
best.
heart. Let me ask you a question. You don't think Coastal Carolina would beat Auburn?
I would wish that would happen. Honestly.
I bet you Coastal Carolina would beat
But
Auburn.
listen, you're talking about Coastal Carolina beating a Big 12 team like Kansas State. I'm sorry, not Kansas State, Kansas, right? Yeah, big difference there, right?
Yes,
I don't want to mess up the Wildcats, even though they start from top and work their way down for some reason. But as far as the Jayhawks is concerned, they took the most vulnerable team, right? But if you take Coastal Carolina against Oklahoma, you think you get the same result? It's not going to happen, man.
I think Coastal Carolina would beat LSU.
Hell no. Hell no.
I put it like this. Last time I saw LSU on a football field, they looked awful.
But they're the same team that beat Florida last year, right?
Awful.
But they beat Florida, and
hey, a broken clock is right twice a day. That doesn't one win in a miserable season otherwise doesn't do it for me. Not to mention that team struggled with the COVID protocol more than any other team in college football last year, to an embarrassing level, where clearly Coach Ed doesn't believe that COVID's real, is my guess. If I had to guess, I'm making assumptions here. I don't think he believes in it. And that's the way they behave
believes in it, though. Really, I don't think anyone down south believes in that.
Well,
stuff.
LSU epitomizes it, and Louisiana is almost as bad as Florida and Texas right now, as far as the ridiculously high infection levels. So if you dum-dums down south, you want us to have a football season, get vaccinated. Good Lord, it's that simple.
And to speak on that, and that's something I want to cover on Speaking of Real podcast with Frank, is that Tennessee, one of the school districts there were arguing about having masks for the students, elementary students, right, for the school year. And
Yeah.
like they wanted to fight about it. Seriously? I mean, how can you fight against science?
You're making
It's
because
been proven.
they're making it political, and
Yeah.
it's a stupid losing battle. It's time to cut the crap now.
Well,
Let's be real.
let's not make it political for college football, especially the Pac-12 is taking a stand because listen, if you don't show up in the games, it's like the NFL, right? You don't show up, you get COVID, and you make the team miss the game. You're paying that money back, right? Everything is cost effective, and if you get canceled out, somebody has to pay the price, right?
Yeah, worldwide there have been 205 million positive COVID tests. 205 million. 38 million here in the United States.
How many is accurate though? Just saying. Just saying.
These are the numbers from the CDC. So, I don't
You,
it depends, I suppose, on your feelings about the government. It's a lot.
oh,
It's a lot. Put it to you like this. Last week in Florida, do you remember in Italy when this thing started and they had bodies on the side of the road?
yeah, yes, I do.
Last week, Florida had as many deaths as Italy did during that amazingly terrible stretch. A year and a half into this, and Florida's making the beginning of a slightly underdeveloped Western nation like Italy, and you're making them look like that was nothing. It's shocking. The ignorance is shocking right now. If you want college football to happen, stop spreading that Delta variant, put on a mask, get a vaccine, and let's watch some college football together.
I'm down with that.
That's all I want.
I want to see fans in the stadiums because I don't want to hear that fake audio stuff anymore.
Yeah,
but speaking about numbers, we have one more stat for you. And this is the top 10 of national championship chances. And right now, Clemson's in the lead with 78% as a playoff chance to make it in there and probably the favorite to win the national championship this year. Do you agree or disagree that Clemson will finish out undefeated and become national champions?
I think they're in as good a position as any of those other, say, top 8 or 9 teams. I don't think Notre Dame, Iowa State, or Miami are legit national championship contenders. I do think A&M, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, and Alabama are reasonable. I do think the national champion will be one of those teams.
Well, I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm always going to be supportive of my Georgia Bulldogs. But the winner of week 1 between Clemson and Georgia is more likely to have a greater chance to become national champions. I can't wait. And of course, there's always the issue with injuries and everything else. But
not having a quarterback that can do anything. Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors in there.
Down in a big moment during the big games. Yeah, you know what that's like.
Yeah, It only took Georgia week 6 or 7 to get a quarterback going, right?
Why didn't you start that guy from the beginning?
Yeah.
You kept saying that last year.
Why are you saying that he's still recovering from a leg injury? That was years ago. Anyhow, hey, this show is brought to you by Clovercrest Media. Visit clovercrestmedia.com. And look, Joe, you got like over 40 podcasts going on over there. I mean, look, I think a lot of people are missing out. Clovercrest Media, they got it going on, so there's the website. It's below. That's clovercrestmedia.com, whether it's sports, murder, suspects, politics, whatever it is, go ahead and search through there and find your favorite show. And
Bro,
also,
we're churning out on average between live stream shows, podcasts, articles. You mentioned it, true crime, religion, politics, lots of different sports. We got it all covered at clovercrestmedia.com. there's generally 6 to 10 new pieces of content every single day. So definitely a place to go check out. And if you don't find something you like, start your own. We can help you with that as well.
Absolutely. And speaking about your own, look, I got the Rest House podcast I got to talk about. I think you need to stick around on this one, man. I really do. But also, HHW show is getting ready for SummerSlam that's happening in a week from Saturday. You want to check that out. And again, you got to go to Clovercrest or also visit hhwshow.com. You can also follow All Four Downs. Look, I can't wait, man. I really can't wait. I am going to end, our season with SummerSlam and dive into football the following week. College football, it's fascinating.
Baby, life is good.
Life is good, and so is everybody else that's starting school. Good luck to every single one of y'all. I hope everyone stays safe. Joe, thank you for being on the show. As always, you the man. Your last words here. The floor is yours, buddy.
Well, like I started off with, I'll just reiterate it, man. It's that time of the year, and again, I think before the whole landscape of college football changes, let's enjoy it one more time. Although I think maybe we'll have at least 2 more years of this, but let's say definitely one more time where things are what they are. Uh, I say let's hope for one of these upstarts, one of these Sun Belts, or one of these smaller conference teams make some noise. It's time for the mid-majors in college football to get their due, and it's clear that the powers that be aren't going to let them have it. So let's enjoy it this season. Hopefully Coastal Carolina is 12-0, and somehow the Power 5 tries to slot them in at the number 12 spot in the country. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, just super excited. College football is back. Boy, we'll have so many great shows coming up. Jace Garcia will be on a lot of these, which is great, and you know what that means. We'll be laughing in his face at some of the ridiculous things he says all season long. For Obi Munez, I am Joe Aguirre. Again, make sure you visit hhwshow.com for all the latest on all four downs. Go to clovercrestmedia.com as well for all the latest on sports. We'll see you next Thursday night, on another episode of All Four Downs.